Limiting rent increases and changing drunk driving laws, we're getting a better idea of what bills may end up passing this year at the state capitol. Olympia Bureau Chief Drew Mickelson has a look at what bills survived this past week's cutoff deadline and which ones are dead. Drew.
Hi, Christine. It's quiet right now here at the House of Representatives chamber, but they have had some busy days and long nights passing a flurry of bills, some that would guarantee unemployment rights for striking workers, also a bill that would boost special education funding. One of the more controversial bills that's still alive deals with how much landlords can increase the rent, and Senate Democrats seem to think that will become law.
I would like to say it puts a pit in your stomach, because you just really don't know what's going to happen next.
Renters rallied on the Capitol steps Friday, telling lawmakers they need help keeping their rent from increasing too much. The House passed a bill to limit rent increases to 7% a year. Republicans say it'll scare developers away, making the housing shortage worse in Washington state. Now, the same bill didn't have the votes to pass the Senate last year, but the Senate Majority Leader told us that he thinks with some changes, like perhaps changing that percentage, the bill could pass.
I think there's interest in looking at the exemption period. I think there's interest in looking at the cap, and that could be an adjustment in the percentage. It could also be the idea of what they call banked capacity, so that you could, a landlord in a particular landlord-tenant relationship could decline to raise the rent in 1 year, but then preserve that cumulative capacity later if it turned out that there was a roof failure, for example, that they needed to have more income to deal with. So, I think there are a lot of conversations going on right now. The math is not complicated. In some ways, we have 18 members of the caucus who are co-sponsors of the bill, and so you need 7 more, and that means 12 members are not co-sponsors on the bill. I don't suspect we're going to have any Republicans voting for it, so out of the 12 you need to find 7 and figure out what, if any, changes they would like to see in the policy, and can you get to a place where 25 of us can agree, and then can we get to a place where we agree with the House. That's what we do all the time on bills, and on this bill in particular. That will be a significant focus of our efforts here over the next few weeks.
We have 5 other states with rent control in our country. Not only would we have rent control with this bill passed, we would have probably the worst one in the country, almost surely to discourage folks from investing in our state. I mean, even if they're just looking at the West Coast, they would look at this current bill and say, look at the rent control in Oregon and California, and decide Oregon and California are better markets than Washington. That is absolutely not the place we want to be.
So dozens of bills did not pass ahead of that deadline. What are some that our viewers may be most interested in?
Yeah, dozens died. First, let's talk about some school-related bills. Districts who were hoping to get some more money to help with transportation costs, that won't be happening, and the state will not be able to pay for K through 12 students to get free breakfasts or lunches. The bill that would have changed some of the rules about signature gathering for those trying to get initiatives passed also died. Republicans and the Democratic Secretary of State, Steve Hobbs, had been raising concerns over that one. And the move to lower the state's threshold for drunk drivers is officially dead. For the past couple of years, bills have been introduced to lower that blood alcohol threshold from 0.08 to 0.05. That bill just doesn't have enough support again this year. Critics don't know if it would have really made a big difference on the roads, but I asked the bill's sponsor if there's just not enough data to support the change.
I think the data is clear. 75% of the world lives under 0.05. I do think the BAC level is not a partisan issue. I think you'll find people on both sides of the aisle who have a different opinion on it. I was disappointed we didn't get it across the finish line this year. We'll try again next year, but I think the data is clear that when you have a 0.05 BAC, it changes people's behaviors. It changes how they behave after they've consumed alcohol. And that is really what we want. We want people to be responsible and not get in a car and drive after they have had too many drinks. So it does.
Or maybe at all.
Or at all. We do designated drivers. I've traveled all over the world, and I know when we were in Australia, there were people who actually had a PBT, a portable breath test, and they would just test themselves before they got in a car. That's a culture change. How do we show up and how do we engage with alcohol and the very, very dangerous act of getting behind a car after you've had alcohol? And in this state, we also have people combining drugs, right? You have alcohol and you have marijuana, and that changes how you get behind a car as well. So I think we need a lot more education. We need to make sure our members are comfortable. I think there's a lot of misinformation on what it takes to even get to a .05.
Another one of Senator Dinger's bills that's dead came to legislators from a group of Lake Washington high school girls. They hope to get a law passed requiring bars and nightclubs have little test strips available for customers who could see if their drinks had been spiked without their knowledge. Senator Dinger said she loved that idea. She loved the passion behind the bill, but she's just not convinced that those strips are truly effective enough. She says she would be open to it, though, in a future year. Christine?
And Drew, looking ahead, the budget debate is really going to ramp up in the next week. Could you explain the timing for us and what are folks watching?
Yeah, Tuesday is a big day that's been circled here on the calendar. That's when the state's budget forecasters will tell budget writers just how much money they have to work with, and that will determine how big this potential deficit is. Maybe $10 billion, maybe $15 billion over the next 4 years. So at that point, we'll be able to move forward with the budget discussions. Will there be cuts to state services and support for nonprofits like food banks? That could be a result of some budget cuts. Some legislators are calling for new taxes to offset cuts, and folks who run the food banks say they would love to see that. Another result of budget cuts could be higher tuition bills at the state's community colleges and four-year universities. There's a bill to allow schools to boost tuition 5% higher than the current cap. Students say that would cause an increase in dropouts.
As a student from the University of Washington, Tacoma, a lot of our students are already facing high costs in housing, lack of affordable housing, lack of food security. That's one of the biggest issues we have on our campus. And to add tuition increases to this is really gonna make some of us rethink what the pathway to higher paid jobs might be.
People aren't going to pay it. Students aren't going to come. The only people who will get to go to college after this will be rich people.
Why do we need to at least discuss raising tuition?
We are facing a very large budget deficit. I am charged with writing a budget that balances for the state of Washington. The size of the budget hole requires that I look broadly at all options. I want people to be able to go to college affordably in the state of Washington as much as anyone else. And unfortunately, as costs continue to rise, we cannot afford to backfill our higher ed institutions to the degree that they need, and so we have to look at the possibility of a small tuition increase to help with that problem.
Possibility, the word that you're looking at right now. I mean, I know there's a lot on the table. This isn't something that you are excited about doing, but it's on the table. It's a possibility.
That's right. I'm definitely not excited about it. I'm not excited about a lot of the decisions that I'm making every day. But it's my job to present a balanced budget. I'm looking at all possibilities. A small tuition increase is one of those possibilities.
The session is set to wrap up 6 weeks from today on April 27th. Would the budget debate push lawmakers into a special session? No one here wants to have that discussion quite yet. Christine?
All right, thank you very much, Drew, as always. And by the way, for in-depth coverage throughout the legislative session, you can head over to our free streaming app, King 5 Plus. Right now on the app, you can find extended versions of Drew's in-session reports available for streaming.